All right, I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. There'll be the Community Police Review Board Community Forum. Could we go ahead and have a roll call, please?
Yes. Okay, Downing,
Here.
Jensen,
Here.
Mcconnell,
Here.
Meckes,
He was here.
Saul?
Saul, I think you're muted perhaps. But I see you there, so. Nichols. Townsend,
Here.
Manderbeck.
Here.
Okay, that's everyone except Amanda.
Okay, this is Melissa again, for what it's worth. I show that my camera is on, but I'm not seeing a screen. So just if you'd make a note of that, I apologize. I'd like to welcome everybody to the community forum. And we will go ahead and like to do an introduction of the board. Again, if I could have some assistance with that, that would be good.
Okay, if each of you could, we'll start with Melissa. Why don't we just go ahead and start with you?
Okay. All right. My name's Melissa Jensen. I've been an Iowa City resident probably 24 years. And previously on the Community Police Review Board, I stepped away for a while to another city board, and now I'm back to provide support, assistance, and work here in Iowa City at Mercy Hospital. And welcome everybody to who's been able to join us.
Thanks, Melissa. Saul, would you introduce yourself? No, I still can't hear you. Okay, I don't know, Kelly, if you can take a look at Saul's. So we'll go next to Stuart then, if you could introduce yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. My microphone wasn't working. I'm Stuart Manderbeck. I've only lived here in Iowa City for about 3 years now. I work here at Mobile Crisis Counseling, which is an organization that helps people in mental health crisis and helps the police out quite a bit of times to deal with the community in crisis. I was in the military, worked with the military police in there, and have always had a good working relationship in the various communities with the officers I've worked with. And I'm going to enjoy working with the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jerry, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jerry Mcconnell. I've lived in Iowa City for about 12 years now, and I've been on the board for about a year and a half, I think. I was a psychiatric social worker when I lived in Cleveland. I practiced for 23 years, and then I moved to Iowa. And I like to be able to give input to some of the emotional and psychiatric issues that come up on the board.
Great, thank you. Ricky?
Yeah, hi, my name's Ricky Downing. I've lived in Iowa City since 1980. I worked as a nurse for 34 years at the VA and also retired from the military. And I'm learning to be a full-time grandpa, which is great.
Wonderful. Orville, could you introduce yourself, and we can see you now. And you are muted, I believe.
Okay, I'm Orville Townsend, and I've been in Iowa City since 1962. When I first came to Iowa City, it was a different scene, different racial atmosphere. So during the years that I've been here after I graduated, I've tried to be involved in as many civic activities as possible. Mainly my philosophy is if you see something wrong, what they say something, I say, try to get involved and make a difference. I'm on my second term with the Community Police Review Board. And I'd like to point out that our city is one of the few cities in the country that has a Community Police Review Board.
Thank you. Saul, you are muted, so if you could unmute yourself and let's see if we can hear you. And I see you're unmuted, but we still cannot hear you. So,
Turn his volume up.
well, my volume is up, but I don't think that's the issue. Okay. Well, Saul, I guess we'll see what we can, if we can hear you at some point. Patrick, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Pat Ford. I'm actually not a board member. I'm an attorney at the Left Law Firm in Iowa City, and I am counsel for the board. So I'm independent counsel. I'm not employed by the city. And I've been counsel for the board 7 or 8 years now.
Okay. Thank you all. Melissa, do you want to take it over again?
All right. Do you want me to take it back or give it back to Orville?
No, you can take it.
Thanks, Orville. Okay. Item number 3 on the agenda is to consider a motion to accept correspondence and/or documents. I don't have the correspondence in front of me. So,
Actually,
Orville,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry,
Tammy.
Melissa. Did not mean to interrupt you. We did not receive any correspondence. So you can move on then to item number 4, which is,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, item number 4 is communicating, with the CPRB, who we are and what we do.
That's correct. Are you able to elaborate on that?
I can take that one if she's
That sounds good, Orville.
not comfortable with
Thank
it.
you. Sure, that's fine, Orville. Thank you.
Okay. We are the Community Police Review Board, and as I mentioned earlier, our city is one of the few cities in the country that has one. Our function is that if a citizen feels that he or she, in terms of their contact or communication with the Iowa City Police Department, if they feel that they've been treated unfairly or did not receive the level of respect that they feel they were due, they can file a complaint with the Community Police Review Board. Once that complaint is filed, it basically gives information to board members to give us a chance to review the material. And included in that material is the police chief report on the complaint. Each complaint is made, the police chief assess the situation and gives his ruling on whether or not the officer acted appropriately, inappropriately. Once he files his report, then the board, we get that report, and then we have a chance to look at any other information. As you know, our police officers have body cameras. Our squad cars have camcorders on the dash. So we have an opportunity to go in and look at the information. And after we've done that, then we as a board can get together and make a ruling on whether or not we feel the officer acted appropriately or inappropriately. And that is whether or not we will sustain or not sustain that officer's actions. One of the things that I find very positive about the board, we also have an opportunity to make recommendations to the city council. We are an advisory board, and one of our functions is to try to do everything we can to make the system better. Thank you.
Okay, other board members, anybody like to, add anything? Orville, thank you for that. That was, you did a great job. Anybody else want to add to a little tidbit to kind of our experiences or things we'd like to share with those attending the meeting? Okay, I'm not hearing anything additional, so I'd like to go ahead and move to item number 5 on the agenda, public discussion. So I do know that we have some attendees. So Tammy, I don't know if there's anything additional we need to do with for an attendee to comment, or to share their concerns.
Actually, I'm going to turn that over to Kelly.
Okay.
I can see.
Yeah, it looks like everybody is on Zoom and not on a phone call. So if you want to use the raise hand button, if you want to ask a question or talk to the board about anything, just raise your hand and we'll call on you and I'll promote you to a panelist. Don't be shy.
So I can jump in maybe and get it started. I've heard people ask this question before, and I don't know if anybody's had this or not. When we talk about sustain or not sustain, I think that's confusing. And if we could talk about that a little bit, I don't know, Pat, if you want to speak to that or anybody else, but that's something I've had questions about, is what that really means.
Sorry, did you want me to comment about that?
I mean, that's fine if you'd like to. I just thought that might be
Yes.
something that we've had questions about in the past that might be
Okay.
helpful.
Yeah, sure. So the language of sustain or not sustain when it refers to a complaint comes directly from the ordinance that creates the CPRB board. And so what that actually means is the board is determining whether to sustain the complaints that are in the written document submitted by the complainant. So sustained complaints means we agree with the complainant, the citizen, who has made a complaint of wrongful conduct by an officer. And just not sustained means the opposite, meaning that the board decided that they do not agree with the complainant and thinks that the chief's ruling on the issue was correct.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Melissa, Amanda is on. She must have gotten connected. So,
Okay.
oh, and you're muted.
I apologize. It is still telling me on my computer that it is waiting for the host to start the meeting. I don't know why. Then I thought to try from my phone and it's working from my phone just fine. So I apologize to everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome. Does this mean I get to turn it back over to Amanda?
Yes, I can take over.
Okay, we were at item number 5, the public discussion, if
Okay,
that's helpful.
thank you.
One of the things that I would share is from looking at complaints over the years is that, we've had complaints filed, and when you look at all the material, initially it looks like the person filing the complaint may have a valid reason, but then as we continue to look at the complaint and we look at all the available material, then we find that there are other things involved, and the person making the complaint, they see just certain things and they determine how they feel about it. And a lot of times they are just looking at one thing. But when you look at what the officer's responsibility is in terms of the action that he or she has initiated, it makes a big difference. So, I think we have to find a true balance, and we basically want to make sure that the person filing the complaints rights haven't been violated, but we also have to look at the reality that our officers are daily put into situations where they have to perform their duties, and it's not an easy thing to do, and they don't always get the outcomes that they'd like to. But basically, all in all, I think they're doing a good job.
Do we have any members of the public with any questions? I don't see any hands raised right now. But we are welcoming both questions and input. One of the things that we do have the ability to do is make recommendations to policy changes. So I'm always interested in hearing what the community thinks about that, since that is who we are serving. So please feel free to raise your hand if anybody has any questions or comments of any kind at any point in time. Have we talked about the changes that have been made to the board this year?
We have not.
Okay. So last year, we submitted recommendations for changes to the Iowa City Council, and some of those changes have been implemented. We have expanded the board from 5 to 7 members, some of whom are here tonight are newly appointed members from that expansion. We have changed, the code has been changed to allow the complainant a chance to respond to the chief's report. Previously, the complainant would get one chance to make their complaint in writing. They would then receive the police chief's report. When we receive the police chief's report, and then we would do our own independent investigation. But there's now an additional step where if the complainant gets the police chief's report back and has anything that they want to add or dispute, they do have a chance to respond to that before we complete our investigation. That was approved in May of last year. We also used to only get complaints that were filed directly with us. Community members can file a complaint against an officer either directly with the Iowa City Police Department or with the Community Police Review Board. If they were filed directly with the police department, we would never see those. Now those do get forwarded to us on a monthly basis. The chief agreed to that one. We're also getting some additional data in our quarterly reports that we did not used to receive. And the statute of limitations to file a complaint has been lengthened from 90 days to 180 days, which is more in line with some of the other boards and commissions in town and the deadlines that they have. Did anyone have any questions or comments about any of those changes?
Yeah, I don't have any comments about the changes, but I would just like to share that, when it comes to police and the citizens, a lot of times people kind of adapt attitudes as us against them. And with the Community Police Review Board, this definitely isn't the case. For example, our police chief attends all of our meetings, and when he can attend, he sends a representative. So, he's involved. He's there to give us input, and basically, that's a big plus. So, I've been really impressed with the way things are set up. Also, the board we have our own attorney that's been appointed for us. So anytime we run across issues that have legal boundaries that we're not comfortable with, we can turn to our attorney and get, feedback in terms of the direction we should take. So, what I'd really like, the citizens to walk away with is to focus more on the efforts that the city has put in place to protect the citizens' rights and give the citizens a voice.
Thank you, Orville. I would like to clarify for community members that the police chief or chief's representative is present for the public part of the meeting, does leave for the executive session when we actually discuss complaints and do our investigations, and the lawyer is present for the entire meeting for both parts of that. Did we go over the process for filing a complaint? Has that been discussed tonight?
I think so.
Yeah.
So Orville, you talked a little bit about who we are and what we do. I wonder if the process itself, though, like how when a complaint is filed, kind of in general, what happens, like how there's timing attached to each of the steps and things like that, if that would be helpful or not.
Okay, yes. I'm trying to find what I was looking for this part. So from the time of an incident, any person that has personal knowledge of an incident involving an Iowa City police officer has 180 days to file an initial complaint. After they file that initial complaint, they will then receive a report back from the chief of police after their initial investigation is done. I want to say too that the person can have a support person with them through every step of the process when they go into the police department to file a complaint, if they choose to do it that way. Otherwise, our complaint forms are now available online on the city website. If you just Google the Iowa City Community Police Review Board, you'll get to our area, and there is a link to file a complaint online now. After the police chief finishes his investigation and files a report, that report goes to the complainant and to us as the Community Police Review Board. And then the complainant has 21 days from the time of the police chief's report to give a response to that report, which we will then also get, and the police chief will get. And then the police chief has 10 days left to respond to that, at which point we then make a decision as to what level of review we're going to set the complaint at. If we think that we have enough information that we can discuss and make a decision as to whether there was a violation or an act of misconduct, or whether we need more information. And if we need more information, there are a few different levels of review that we can set that at that allow us to either request an interview with the complainant, which is always up to the complainant to consent to or not, if they would like to speak with us and give us more information, or if they don't, they can always decline that, and that could be over the phone or in person. And then we have 90 days to write our report. as to whether or not we think that the complaint should be sustained or not sustained based on one of the levels of review is also to review footage. We can review body cam footage and dash cam footage. And our report is due, like I said, within 90 days to City Council. And then that report is public with identifying information removed. So the names of the complainant and the names of the officers are not made public, but the rest of the report is. Anybody think, did I leave anything out? Did anybody have any questions about that?
Amanda, there is a comment in the chat.
Okay.
You want to read that? And
Weird being on my phone instead of
Oh.
my computer.
I certainly can if you can't see it very well.
Could you go ahead and read it?
Sure. It says, as you know, the country has witnessed over the recent years a greater number of police shootings, excessive force, and other issues that has driven a wedge between the police department and the community. They're interested in hearing from the board their impressions of recent events, Grand Rapids as example, and if there are things that they can help build trust between the police department and the community outside of strictly handling complaints.
Can I take a shot at that one to begin with?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that part of that is largely where our community forums and our ability to make recommendations to policy comes in. I think that there are definitely a lot of avenues through policy to reduce some of those situations and reduce some of the harm that can come from policing. And that is something that I'm really hoping to hear more of from the community as well in regards to suggestions for things that they would like to see us work on to that end.
Yeah, and I would just like to share that I'm big on communication, and we're fortunate that if a citizen has a concern that has to do with law enforcement, you can contact the police department and request a meeting with the police chief, because, you know, it's like if you're not aware that a situation exists, you can't begin to put things in place to improve or rectify.
I was going to say also that we only take complaints regarding Iowa City police officers. We don't take any complaints from Coralville or University Police or other departments. We get some people trying to complain to there, and we have to refer them back to their own departments.
Yes, the Coralville does have their own community police review board now, and the university has a safety and security committee that people can direct complaints to in those areas. And I also want to say that off of what Orville said, in addition to being able to directly talk to the police chief, want to also emphasize that we recognize that, or at least I recognize that if somebody feels that they have been harmed by an officer, that might be something that is not comfortable or does not feel safe. And that is one of the reasons that we exist as a third party to file a complaint with. Again, you can do that online now. You do not have to go into the police department, and you are able to have a support person with you through every step of the process to help you fill out those forms with you if you do choose to meet and talk with us, if we have more questions for you afterwards, etc. There are multiple avenues for making those complaints.
I would just like to touch upon an area that we don't talk about that much, and that's mental illness. And as you know, individuals, when they're having a mental illness episode, you know, they're not coherent in terms of what they're doing. But I would say that from what I've seen over the years that I've been on the Police Review Board, and just looking at materials, is that the training that our officers receive is really advantageous to that particular population.
And the department does have a policy for the police officers, how to deal with it. It's in the manual. And that's one of the things that we can look at also. The standard of review, it has to be on how a reasonable officer would react. So that's one of the main things. We want to be fair to the public, and we want to be fair to the police officers. And that can be a balancing act. But again, the board has lots of information that they can refer back to by looking at the body cams, by looking at the car cams, and by talking to the police officer and finding out what the standards are and that type of thing.
I personally would still like to see us work on, we tried with our bias-based policing recommendation that we passed as a board that did not get approved by the city because of conflicts with state law. But I would like to see us remove police from mental health circumstances as much as possible through policy. And I'm not quite ready to give up on that one yet. I'd like to keep working on that as well over the rest of my term.
And the police department does have a person, a liaison now, who is able to go out and deal with mental cases. They don't go originally because you don't know, well, recently, not around here, but some police officers got killed going out to a domestic violence situation. And you also have to ensure the safety of whomever is going out to intervene. The social person that acts with the police goes out to follow up on questions, making sure people are getting services that they need, if it's mental health or if it's sociological or whatever. But then the individual always has the right to refuse to act upon the recommendations.
Amanda, I have another question in the chat, and two, if you want to address the board, you can use the raise hand button. But the question is the CPR complaint form the same as the Icpd complaint form? If not, what are the differences?
They are separate forms. And I feel like I should know the answer to that question, but I cannot honestly say off the top of my head what the differences are other than where they're submitted to. That is something that we can look at. And like I said, I know that our form is available on the CPRB city site, but I'm sure that we could put up a side-by-side where we could include the one to, we could discuss adding the one directly to the department right next to that. I imagine.
Amanda, does the, when a complaint is filed, does the equity director also still receive a copy of that complaint?
As far as I know, yes. I don't
Okay.
think that there's been any change to that.
Okay.
This is Tammy, Melissa. Yes, she does receive a copy.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments from the community? Are there any other board members that have anything?
Amanda, there is look like one more comment in the chat, a question in the chat.
Is there
Can you see it?
is there data reflecting the number of complaints received and the number that are sustained versus unsustained? I know that that data exists. I believe, if Tammy or Kelly can please tell me if I'm wrong about this. On the website, I know that you can link directly to all of the public complaints. Is that summarized at the top or the bottom there? How many of those per year were each way?
I'll take that one, Tammy. The board does do an annual report that does have the numbers. It's on a fiscal year and not a calendar year. But there is also City Manager's Office compiled a bunch of data that's on the Black Lives Matter webpage. So I think it's icgov.org/Black Lives Matter that has over time all of the information compiled and in a report on that webpage.
Could we also, because I know that when you go to look at the public reports, they're in folders by years. Would it be possible to discuss having in each of those folders, just at the top before each report, before the list of all reports, having so many out of so many sustained in each fiscal year calendar?
We can have that as a discussion point at our next board meeting.
To make that information a little more accessible.
Okay, good point.
Did any other board members or city representatives have anything that feel we haven't covered? Otherwise, I guess maybe give another moment for public opportunity for comment or questions, and if none come up, then maybe look at adjourning. Feel free to raise your hand if you have anything you would like to add. Okay, I will motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Community forum adjourned at 6:48. Thank you.